Losing my job at the plant broke something in me. I didn't realize it at the time. Figured I was just tired. Everyone was tired. GM shut down most of second shift overnight. After 17 years on the line, I was out with a half-ass severance and a thank you email. Tina's medical bills piled up faster than the snow that winter. I applied everywhere. Construction crews, truck stops, even the Walmart warehouse. Nothing. That's how I ended up slapping burgers at Wendy's for $9.50 an hour, wearing a stiff visor and pretending it didn't sting every time a high school kid called me sir. Nights at the Wendy's off University Avenue dragged slow. Dead by 2 a.m. most nights. Maybe 2 or 3 drunk kids rolling through the drive-thru, slurring through an order of chicken nuggets. No real staff. Just me. A girl named Marcy who never looked up from her phone, and Darren, the night manager, who gave less of a shit than anyone I'd ever met. Sometimes I found myself just staring out at the empty parking lot, thinking about the way life shrank down when you weren't paying attention. It was snowing that night. I remember that clear, wet, heavy flakes slapping the drive-thru window. I was wiping down the counter, thinking about nothing, when the headset crackled. Delivery order, 1427 Mill Road. The voice was flat. Mail, maybe. Hard to tell through the static. I paused. Mill Road? That place was dead. Everybody knew it. Darren didn't even look up. Just bagged the food, scribbled my employee ID on the slip and shoved it toward me. Already paid, man, drop it off, don't waste gas sitting there. I thought about arguing. Thought about saying hell no. But then I thought about the light bill sitting on my kitchen counter and Tina asleep in the trailer with her oxygen machine rattling. I grabbed the keys to the delivery car. Didn't say a word. The farther I drove, the more the snow picked up. The town faded behind me. Strip malls, gas stations, empty streets. Just me and the road. 27. Mill Road sat alone, swallowed by the trees in the dark. I killed the headlights before I pulled up. Habit. Some places you just knew not to announce yourself. The house looked worse than I remembered. Porch sagging, shutters hanging loose, front door half off the hinges. No lights, no footprints in the snow. I sat there a minute, bag on the passenger seat, thinking maybe it was a prank. Some bored teenager messing around. Then the door swung. Open, no wind, no movement, just slow, like somebody inside was waiting. I grabbed the bag and walked up, heart hammering. Stupid to go inside, but it didn't feel like I had a choice, like something was pulling me forward. Inside smelled wrong. Damp, metallic. A rotting smell under it all, faint but there. The living room was empty, at first glance. Then I saw them. 2 bodies on the floor. Jake and Lisa from high school. Jake's head lolled sideways, mouth open. Lisa's eyes were wide like she was trying to scream, but the sound got stuck. In front of them, someone had set out a Wendy's cup. Red lipstick on the rim, fresh like someone just took a sip. I dropped the bag. Backed out fast. Almost slipped on the porch steps, caught myself on the railing. My heart felt like it was punching my ribs from the inside. I didn't call the cops, I didn't do anything smart. I got back in the car, drove straight back to Wendy's, clocked out early, and drove home shaking so bad I barely kept it between the lines. The worst part? I told myself I'd dream it. That it wasn't real, but real has a way of catching up. They arrested me 3 days later. Someone must have called it in anonymous. Cops found my fingerprints on the door. Found the receipt with my employee ID written in Darren's rushed, sloppy handwriting. Found one of our gloves stuffed in Lisa's mouth. They brought me in, held me in a windowless room under bright lights. A detective with a beer gut and a permanent scowl kept asking the same questions over and over. Why were you there? What were you doing? How do you explain the evidence? I didn't have good answers. Just the truth. And truth doesn't fit clean in their little checkboxes. Word spread fast. Small towns run on rumors faster than electricity. I couldn't pump gas without somebody staring. Couldn't walk into Hy-Vee without hearing whispers. Tina tried to hold it together. She kept saying, "It'll clear up. They'll find the real guy." But I could see it eating her alive. The worry, the shame, the what-ifs. I couldn't sleep. Couldn't stop hearing that crackle over the headset. Couldn't stop seeing Jake's face. Then a week later, the headset crackled again. Delivery, 1427 Mill Road. Same dead voice, same dead address. This time, when the cops went, they didn't find any bodies, no blood, no mess, just a single chili packet sitting in the center of the floor, still sealed like some kind of joke. Nobody knew what to make of it. Me? I started carrying a hunting knife tucked into my sock. Didn't matter if it was crazy. Didn't matter if it made me look guilty. Something wasn't finished yet. I could feel it. I went back alone the next week. Didn't tell Tina. Didn't tell anyone. Just clocked out, grabbed my brother's taser and the knife and drove. Same house, same smell, same quiet. Only this time I didn't knock. I went straight to the back where the old cellar doors hung open. I climbed down into the basement, slow flashlight beam shaking in my hand. He was standing there, under a bare bulb, humming, wearing a Wendy's visor. Same uniform as me, just dirtier, stained. I froze. Thought maybe it was a trick of the light. But then he turned, real slow. His eyes were empty, wide, like a kid's drawing of a man, unfinished. "You forgot my order," he said, voice low, sing-song. I didn't think, just tased him. He crumpled hard, hit the concrete with a sound I still hear sometimes at night. Around him were Polaroids, taped to the walls, photos of every graveyard shift worker. My name tag floated in a frosty cup, half buried in melted ice. A schedule was pinned to the wall with my shifts circled over and over in red ink. He wasn't some monster out of a movie. No glowing eyes, no claws. Just a man. Just broken in ways I didn't want to understand. I duct taped his wrists and ankles with my hands shaking so bad I could barely rip the tape. Then I sat at the bottom of the stairs and waited for the cops, trying not to puke. His name was Daniel Wexler. He used to work there before I did. Fired for creeping on a coworker, but nobody bothered to update the system when he came back months later. Turns out, he never really left Cedar Falls. They found maps in his motel room, schedules, notes, photos, names. Some of the workers he fixated on had already quit, moved out of state. Guess I was the unlucky one still around. The town mostly forgot fast. Newspaper had my name spelled wrong in the headline. The Wendy's got a fresh coat of paint and some new cameras, but otherwise, business as usual. I quit the day after Wexler's arraignment. Couldn't stand being in that uniform another second. Tina and I scraped together enough to move to a smaller trailer closer to Waterloo. I got on a drywall crew. The work's hard, but it's honest. Still, some nights when the wind rattles the windows, I think about that headset crackling. Think about the way Wexler said, "You forgot my order," like it meant something deeper. And sometimes, just sometimes, when I pass a Wendy's and hear the tinny sound of their dumb jingle through the speakers, I pull over, put my head between my knees, and breathe slow until the panic passes. You can survive anything, they say, but they never tell you what surviving does to you after. When my wife left, she didn't take much, just the furniture and her name off the mailbox. Left behind Mia, though. Our daughter was 12 back then, scared and stubborn like me. I remember standing in the kitchen, the fridge humming too, loud and thinking, well, it's just us now. I never finished high school, never needed to. Not in Nebraska back then. Got a job frying burgers at the Wendy's off I-80. Figured it'd be a stopgap, something to get by. Somehow 17 years slipped by between paychecks and double shifts. It wasn't a life, but it was our life. The graveyard shift was hell on the body, but paid a little more. Covered the rent on our double wide and helped Mia make it through community college. I wore my brown uniform and my red visor and kept my head down. Sometimes when it was real slow, like 3 a.m. and just the hum of the fryer and the buzz of the fluorescent lights, I'd think about all the time I lost. About how small life got when you stop asking for more. Then one Tuesday night, the sheriff called. Mia's Honda Civic was wrapped around a pole behind our Wendy's dumpster. I drove like a madman the 2 miles to the store. The car was still warm, frost on the windshield, no blood inside. No Mia, just her name tag stuck in the shattered glass and a junior bacon cheeseburger half-eaten in the passenger seat. The Civic's headlights were still on, pointing out into the empty cornfields like she had somewhere to go. The security cameras by the dumpsters had been broken for weeks. Budget cuts, corporate said, not a priority. Mia had clocked out at 2:41 a.m. At 2:47, her car was found abandoned. 6 minutes. 6 minutes where she just disappeared. The police shrugged it off at first. Probably ran off, the deputy said, scratching his chin, already bored. College girl. Probably got herself into some trouble. They didn't know Mia. She wasn't reckless. She didn't leave unfinished cheeseburgers on her seat or her visor in the cup holder. I cleaned out her locker myself 2 days later. Couldn't bring myself to let strangers do it. Her little space smelled like fryer oil and the cheap peach shampoo she always used. Under her spare aprons, crammed into the corner, I found a notebook. Grease-stained, half falling apart. Inside were pages and pages of license plate numbers, dates and notes about cars that stayed too long in the drive-thru after hours. Sometimes she wrote descriptions. Silver SUV, no headlights, lingered 10 minutes. Another section listed shift schedules of every girl who worked graveyard. Names circled, addresses jotted down in sloppy ink, and on the last page, an address written 3 times over. 1427 Old Mill Road, an abandoned farmhouse out past the service road. When I showed it to the sheriff, he just shook his head. Kids get spooked working nights. Mia wasn't spooked. She was tracking something, or someone. The next night, I wandered behind the Wendy's, over by the compost dumpster where the cameras didn't reach. I found a crumpled Wendy's visor, dark and sticky with something I didn't want to name. Duct tape strips peeled and stuck to the inside walls like some kind of sick project. Near the ground was a water bottle, pink lipstick print around the rim, the same color Mia always wore. I stared at that dumpster for a long time, smelled the old fryer grease, the sour sweet rot of discarded lettuce, thought about how nobody ever really looked back here, nobody but whoever was waiting. I didn't tell the cops what I found, didn't trust them to care. Instead, I went out to Old Mill Road, borrowed my neighbor's truck and took a baseball bat just in case. The farmhouse was older than I remembered. Broken windows boarded up haphazardly, front porch sagging into the weeds. The swing creaked even though there was no wind. I hated how cliché it was. Hated how my heart still beat too fast. Inside, the air was thick with mold and something sharper underneath. Animal, maybe. Maybe not. In the front room, I found the Polaroids. Dozens of them, pinned to the cracked walls. Most were grainy shots of the Wendy's drive-thru window. But a few were Mia, leaning out to hand someone their Frosty, smiling that tired smile she got after 6 hours on her feet. A stack of printed employee schedules sat on a mildewed coffee table. Hours from our Wendy's. A different set of names circled each week in thick black marker. Under the sink, taped to the pipes, I found a key. Just an ordinary key, except for a bus station locker number scratched into it with a knife. The house was empty. Whoever lived here had moved on, but not far. And they were still watching. Still picking. I didn't tell the sheriff. Couldn't risk them screwing this up the way they had everything else. The bus station was 3 towns over. A sad little building, with a flickering Coke machine and one old man asleep on a bench. Locker 116. That's what the numbers scratched into the key said. My hands shook unlocking it. Inside, a stack of newspaper clippings about missing fast food workers from all over, Nebraska and Iowa. Mostly young women, mostly night shifts. Cases that went cold. A faded photo from a career fair. Mia smiling awkwardly next to a man in a Wendy's polo. Mr. Hargrove, our district manager. And folded neatly inside a stained napkin, a bloody Frosty spoon. I sat down hard, on the grimy floor. Couldn't breathe for a second. Mia trusted Hargrove. She said he'd helped her get better shifts so she could save for nursing school. She thought he was One of the good ones. I thought about all those late nights he'd stop by after hours saying he was checking in. How none of us ever questioned it. Who questions the boss, especially when you're too damn tired and too damn broke to start trouble? Hargrove lived in a neat ranch house outside town. Nice lawn, new truck in the driveway, American flag on the porch. I broke in through the garage. Couldn't bring myself to care anymore. The house smelled like bleach and burnt meat, sour and heavy. His den was the worst. Walls covered in time cards, Polaroids pinned to corkboards, each one labeled with nicknames. Fries, burgers, Frosty. Mia's college acceptance letter was stuck dead center like a trophy. I hid in the pantry when I heard his keys jingling, listened to him hum that dumb Wendy's jingle under his breath while he made a pot of coffee like it was any other night. It wasn't any other night. I had the bat ready. My hands didn't shake anymore. The cops came later, after I made an anonymous call from a payphone. Hargrove pleaded out. Got moved to some mental health facility out east. Corporate washed their hands clean, said he was a lone bad actor, not their responsibility. They remodeled the Wendy's, replaced the fryers, hired fresh faces, pretended it never happened. I got a day job at a Taco Bell off Highway 2. It's easier, not easier, depending on the day. Mia's name tag sits in my wallet now, worn and grease-stained. I catch myself rubbing it sometimes when the ice machine rattles wrong or when the fryer spits too loud. They say you learn to live with loss. I'm still learning. I never planned to die flipping burgers at a Wendy's off Route 9, but life has a way of gutting your plans. After my divorce, after my son's asthma diagnosis, after the hospital bills stacked up higher than my fridge magnets, I grabbed whatever. Job kept the lights on. Night manager. Third shift. Pays $1.50 more an hour because nobody sane wants it. The Wendy's was a dump. Flickering drive-thru sign. Grease stains baked into the tile grout. The dumpster always smelled worse than it should. Like something alive had crawled in there and died angry. Corporate would send cheery emails about brand spirit, while we duct-taped fryer baskets back together. It didn't help that the night crew barely lasted a week. Drifters mostly, with scratchy tattoos and junky eyes, and high school kids who thought it was funny to pee in the Frosty machine. By 2 a.m. it was just me and the endless hiss of the fryers. Some nights, when the traffic was dead and the fluorescent lights buzzed just right, I could almost pretend I was invisible. No court dates, no second notice bills. Just the heavy fried oil air and my own breathing. It was around 3 a.m. when I first noticed the freezer light on. The walk-in was supposed to stay locked after closing, corporate policy after that lawsuit. In it, oh wait. At first I thought maybe Jack, the new kid, forgot to latch it. Again, I cursed under my breath, grabbed my set of keys and shoved the heavy door open. Frost rolled out like fog. The hair on my arms stood up. Inside, under the cold blue light, moldy burger buns stacked into a sad, lumpy bed. Empty Frosty cups catching rainwater dripping from a crack in the ceiling. The sour, rancid stench of old grease and something human underneath it. Then I heard it. A cough. A small, wheezing child's cough from somewhere deep behind the frozen beef pallets. And that's when everything started to slide sideways. I called out, voice thin and shaky. "Hello, who's back there?" No answer. Just another ragged little cough. I edged around the pallets, the cold biting into my hands, heart hammering. Part of me thought it had to be a prank. Maybe the high schoolers got bored. Maybe I was just so sleep-deprived. I was imagining things. But then she stepped out, barefoot, filthy, clutching 2 kids who looked even worse. She was wearing a Wendy's uniform. Not a new one either. Faded red shirt, visor sagging, patches of fryer grease matted into her hair. The kids clung to her legs like baby possums, ketchup packets smeared across their mouths and shirts. She opened her mouth and whispered, barely, audible over the freezer fans. He lets us out to clean the bathrooms after closing. Says we're training." I swear to God, my stomach dropped straight to the concrete floor. Behind a stack of pickle buckets, I found a rusted lockbox. Inside were things I didn't want to touch. Employee files, not ours. Names from stores. 3, 4 states away. Polaroids. Blurry shots of women all in Wendy's uniforms, some smiling, some looking real scared. Dates going back 15 years. A plastic key card. District manager access. I grabbed the woman's wrist, more careful than rough. "Come with me," I said, "now." She flinched like I'd hit her, but nodded. Scooped up the kids. I shoved the freezer door shut with my foot, heart pounding in my throat. Out front, I called 911 on the store's dusty landline, praying the signal would hold. That's when headlights flooded through the drive-thru window. A silver Lexus, smooth and quiet. Only corporate guys drove cars like that. And I had a damn bad feeling about who it was. The silver Lexus pulled into the lot slow, like it owned the blacktop. Mr. Calloway stepped out. Pressed khakis, shiny shoes, Wendy's jacket crisp like it came straight from the dry cleaner. District training coordinator. The guy who showed up once a month to scold us about burger temps and mop water pH, then left without even touching a broom. He strolled up to the door, humming that chirpy, fresh, never-frozen jingle under his breath, like he didn't know the world was about to end. I locked the front doors before he could get inside, watched him tap on the glass with one manicured knuckle. When he saw me holding the lockbox, his whole face changed. Smile slid off like a dropped mask. He mouthed something through the glass. I didn't catch it, didn't need to. The woman and her kids were huddled behind the counter, shaking. Calloway pulled his keys from his pocket, a thick silver ring rattling, and tried the employee entrance. Didn't think, didn't plan. Just grabbed the heaviest thing I could reach, a metal tray from the prep table. When the door cracked open, I swung hard. The tray connected with a wet crunch. His knees buckled and he hit the asphalt face first, blood blooming across the white cement like spilled ketchup. I stood there panting, the tray slipping from my fingers, my brain trying to catch up. Sirens wailed in the distance, louder, closer. Someone must have heard me screaming into the phone earlier. I looked at the woman, at the kids clinging to her apron strings. I said the only thing I could think of. It's over. But even then, I wasn't sure it was. The cops didn't believe it at first. Wendy's? A kidnap ring? Sounded like something off late-night TV. But the evidence was everywhere. 17 missing women, connected by Calloway's job transfers, detailed manuals in his Lexus on how to cut security feed wires. The old night manager's badge tucked in his glove box, blood-stained. Turns out Calloway had been moving problem employees off the books for years. Nobody questioned it because turnover's high in fast food. Some girl disappears from night shift. Everyone figures she just quit, moved to a better town, ran from her boyfriend. Corporate issued a press release within hours. Rogue, employee, no knowledge, full cooperation with authorities. They even sent a grief counselor down from Omaha the next morning. She smelled like lilac and kept patting my hand like I was 90 years old. The store closed for 2 weeks. Deep cleaning, the sign said. Fresh coat of paint, new management, brand new freezer alarms installed. I heard Calloway pled down to labor violations. 18 months, maybe 2 years if the judge felt generous. No real time for what he did. The woman and her kids, witness protection, somewhere far away now. New names, new lives. I stayed for a while, kept flipping burgers under the new boss, kept trying to act normal. But the freezer door made a noise when it shut, a little hiss, like a trapped breath. And every time I heard it, I thought about those nights, those ketchup-smeared kids, that cracked, broken smile on Calloway's face, the way corporate kept their hands squeaky clean. I work at a McDonald's now, 2 exits down the interstate. Better. Lighting. Glass walls everywhere. No shadows to hide in. But sometimes, late, when the traffic thins out and the fryer spits quiet, the freezer alarm chirps for no reason. Every time I check. Every time I swing open the heavy door with my heart punching, my ribs, nothing inside but bags of fries and frozen pies. But still I check. Because now I know something most people don't. Some uniforms don't just erase your name. They erase your whole damn life. And some freezers stay cold for reasons no cleaning crew can scrub away. I keep Mia's old inhaler in my locker. Reminds me why I stayed awake when I wanted to quit. Reminds me to look. Because the real horror wasn't the freezer, or the broken cameras, or even Calloway smiling with blood in his teeth. It was how close I came to walking past that open door, telling myself it wasn't my problem. How easy it is to pretend you didn't hear the cough behind the beef, and how many others had. I got the job at Wendy's because there weren't a lot of options. After Dad's tractor rolled on him that spring, the medical bills hit faster than we could stack them. Mom picked up double shifts at the grain co-op. I put in nights at the 24-hour Wendy's out on Highway 6. Our town wasn't much. A couple thousand people clinging to dying farmland. After the Millers, Carrie, our assistant manager, and her 2 kids who ran drive-thru, were found frozen solid in the walk-in. You'd think the place would have shut down, but no. 2 days later, we were slinging Baconators like nothing happened. Corporate sent down a new freezer thermometer and a memo about prioritizing food safety. The nights blurred together, refilling sauce trays, mopping sticky floors, dodging the fry oil burns that always seemed to find my wrists. Dad stopped sleeping much after the accident. He started driving around town late at night, circling Wendy's like a ghost. He said he didn't remember doing it. First time I noticed something wrong was 2 weeks after the Millers. I was taking out trash near the back door, and there they were, Dad's old muddy boots, left sitting neatly under the emergency exit like he'd just stepped out of them. Only he swore up and down he hadn't been anywhere near Wendy's that night. Later, during close, I found the walk-in freezer door propped open with a mop bucket. The lock, supposed to be dead-bolted after hours, picked clean like a crow. Got to it. I slammed it shut, told myself it was just rust, old hinges. That night, cleaning out the grease trap, I fished out something awful. A Frosty spoon, snapped at the handle, caked in something that wasn't grease. It was dark, sticky, and smelled wrong. I went home that night feeling like I had grease under my skin that soap couldn't touch, and I couldn't stop wondering, if it wasn't the Millers haunting that freezer, maybe it was something worse. The next night after close, I waited until Dad went out for his smoke, and his third that hour, and I started digging. The freezer had always given me the creeps, but now it felt different, like it was breathing when I wasn't looking. I ran my hand along the back wall. The metal felt uneven, soft in spots. When I pressed harder, a panel shifted. Behind it, a crumpled nest of old Wendy's uniforms, stained and torn. Mrs. Miller's manager logbook, its leather cover ripped, half the pages torn clean out. Dad's old pocket knife, the one he said he'd lost back during corn harvest. The blade was crusted over with something dark, dried hard like old syrup. I flipped through what was left of the logbook. Most of the pages were just schedules, supply orders, boring stuff. But the last entry, written in Carrie Miller's shaky hand, stopped me cold. He watches us through the drive-thru cameras after close, told corporate. They said I was paranoid, said to focus on uptime metrics. I sat there on the freezer floor, uniforms sagging around me like empty skins, heart rattling so hard I thought it might crack my ribs. Dad had always been a good man, worked sunup to sundown, kept his head down, paid cash at the diner, knew every guy at the feed store by name. But that night, sitting in the freezer where the Millers had frozen to death, frosty cups still clutched in their hands, I realized something ugly. Good men aren't born bad. They're made, and sometimes they're made by a tractor slipping in wet soil, a pile of bills on the kitchen counter, and a son who stopped believing in him. Once you see something, you can't unsee it. Every shift. After that, the Wendy's felt wrong. The fryer oil seemed thicker. The walls sweated. Even the Frosty machine wheezed like it couldn't catch its breath. One night I followed the frost. Literally. Footprints, shallow dents in the thin ice that coated the freezer floor every morning. They led from the walk-in door toward the pickle station. I pulled up the rubber mats and pried loose the fake panel. Hidden underneath was a compartment I didn't know existed. Inside, a stack of VHS security tapes dusted with flour and mildew, a collection of name tags, Carrie Miller's, her sons, her daughters. stuffed in a chili container. Dad's old work schedule pinned on the underside of the lid, certain nights circled in red Sharpie. I popped one of the tapes into the old player in the back office. Static hissed. Then it cleared. The camera showed the Millers after close, wiping counters, laughing, tired but alive. Then the camera panned, unnaturally, slowly, toward the walk-in freezer. There, in the edge of the frame, was a man. Heavy boots. A limp in his right leg. A familiar limp. Dad. I slammed the tape out of the machine and sat there, breathing, through my teeth. The world tilted sideways. How had no one seen it? Or worse, who had seen it and decided not to care? That night, when Dad came to pick me up like always, I told him my shift ran late and stayed behind. I watched him through the grease-smudged window. He circled the building twice, lights off, engine idling, and when the drive-thru sensor clicked on, even with no car, I swear I heard his voice crackle through the empty headset. Need a number 6 combo, and hurry. The sheriff came by 2 days later, sipping a gas station coffee and asking if I'd seen Dad. Said his truck had been found parked behind the old grain silo. Engine still warm. Door hanging open. Inside, they found his wallet, a rusted-out shotgun, and a folded-up photo of our family. Me, him, Mom, taken back before the tractor accident. No sign of Dad. Not a fingerprint, not a boot print, not even a trace of blood. They called it a disappearance, same as the Millers. Corporate cleaned. House fast. A brand new manager, new security cameras, new uniforms with brighter reds and sharper collars. They even put glass panels on the new freezer so nobody could get trapped again, but nobody cleaned the fryer grease right. Some nights, when you scraped the sludge off the grill, you'd see a boot print frozen in the chili grease under the burners. The outline of a work boot, heavy tread, right foot dragging just a little, same limp, same man. Sheriff closed the case in 2 weeks. No foul play. Corporate sent a bonus check and a meat thermometer to boost employee morale. And still, on dead shifts at 3 a.m., the drive-thru headset would crackle. Always the same order. Number 6 combo. No tomato, large Frosty, and always, no car outside. I quit Wendy's the next month. Mornings now at Dairy Queen. No walk-in freezers, no night shifts. Just sticky countertops and tourists too cheap to tip. Sometimes I think about Dad. Wonder if he froze to death out there by the silo, or if something colder found him first. Wonder what it says about a man that he'd keep coming back to the same broken place night after night, even after death. The new Wendy's manager tells the new hires not to go into the freezer alone. Corporate says it's for liability reasons, but the old-timers know. It's because sometimes the frost on the walls forms patterns, faces, hands. Sometimes the drive-thru sensor trips without a car in sight. Sometimes you hear the headset crackle. At 3:04 a.m., a voice thick with static. Number 6 combo, and hurry. And sometimes, if you look close at the grease trap before the morning shift starts, you'll find a boot print stamped deep into the muck. Still dragging, still limping, still waiting. I never planned to work at Wendy's forever. It was supposed to be a pit stop, a paycheck to help me survive the custody case with my ex and keep my son's asthma meds paid for. Nights were rough, but they paid better, and desperate doesn't argue with overtime. The Wendy's off Route 9 wasn't much, just a squat brick box wedged between a truck stop and a cornfield that always smelled like diesel and wet dirt. At night, the world shrank to headlights, the hiss of fryers and the crackle of the drive-thru headset. Most of my shifts bled together, babysitting teenagers who vaped in the stockroom, scrubbing ketchup off the tile grout, lying to customers when the ice cream machine broke again. The headset always buzzed with static when the weather got bad, like it was trying to whisper secrets. I was too busy fighting my ex's lawyer and maxing out my credit cards to notice when things started getting weird. First, my Civic's gas cap was unscrewed after one shift. Then my apartment key vanished from my lanyard. Little things. Things you tell yourself are accidents because the alternative is scarier. The night it happened, I closed by myself. Last man standing. Half the crew had bailed after the dinner rush. I did the fryers, the floors, the drive-thru windows, clocked out at 2:47 a.m. sharp, tired enough to cry. I didn't even glance toward the dumpster at first. Didn't notice the beat-up van squatting behind it. Dark windows gleaming like shark eyes. Not until I tried to leave. The employee lot behind Wendy's was a stretch of cracked asphalt, barely lit by a dying lamppost. My Civic sat there alone, waiting, like a loyal dog. I shifted into gear, pulling toward the exit, and stopped dead. The drive-thru menu board had fallen over, blocking the only way out. Huge, heavy, bolts sticking out at weird angles. No way it just fell on a perfectly still night. Cussing under my breath, I got out to move it. The metal scraped and shrieked against the ground as I dragged it aside. Sweat ran cold down my back, despite the humid air. That's when my headlights caught movement, a silver sedan idling by the compost bin, low to the ground, headlights off. I told myself it was nothing. Maybe another employee, maybe a trucker lost, maybe the night manager back for paperwork. But when I pulled out and hit the back road toward town, the sedan pulled out too. When I turned left, they turned left. When I slowed down, they slowed too. When I sped up, so did they. I wasn't just tired anymore. I was wide awake in the worst way possible. I floored it through the dark cornfields, tires howling on cracked pavement. My Civic rattled like it might come apart at the seams. I needed people, witnesses, light. I spotted the Shell station glowing in the distance, the only place open 24/7. Slammed on the brakes, pulled into the lot so hard I scraped the curb. The sedan followed, slow and steady like it had all the time in the world. I jumped out, heart trying to punch through my ribs, pretending to pump gas, watching them over the Civic's hood. The driver stayed inside the sedan. Engine purring, headlights, pointed right at me. I ducked into the Shell station, pretending to browse snacks, peeking through the dirty windows. The sedan didn't leave. When I finally left, clutching a pack of gum I didn't even want, they fell in behind me again. I made random turns through the industrial park, past warehouses and dark storefronts, but the sedan stayed with me. It wasn't a mistake, wasn't coincidence. It was a hunt. I couldn't go home, not with my son there. I pulled into a random side street 3 blocks from my apartment, jammed the car into park, and killed the engine. The sedan rolled up beside me and stopped. The driver got out, lanky, wearing a Wendy's polo shirt. Early 20s maybe. Didn't look crazy. Didn't look safe either. He rapped on my window. "Check your trunk," he said, calm, almost bored. "Saw some tweaker crawl in when you moved that sign." I stared at him. Was this a scam? Was he the real? Danger? He held up his phone. 911 was already dialed, the call ready to hit send. Timestamp 2:47 a.m. My blood iced over. I popped the trunk from inside the car, flinching back as it creaked open. Inside was our fired grill cook, the one who got let go 2 weeks back for showing up high, who used to hang around my register pretending to need extra shifts. He was curled around a duffel bag stuffed with stolen cash drawers. A box cutter gleamed under his sock. And worse, my missing apartment key tucked in his back pocket. The cops got there fast. They always do when it's already too late. Turns out the Good Samaritan was our district loss prevention officer, new to our region, not even in uniform half the time. He'd been watching the cook for weeks. Noticed how he hovered around my station, how he punched out early but lingered in the lot, how the cameras malfunctioned just during my clock-out shifts. Corporate didn't want a scandal. They quietly settled, paid for new locks on my building, installed panic buttons near the fryers, put out a memo about heightened security awareness. But none of it fixes the way I flinch when I hear a drive-thru headset crackle now, or how I check my trunk 3 times before starting the car, or how some nights, when I'm closing alone and the air smells like fryer grease and rain, I swear I can hear whispering through the static. Not the cook, not the loss prevention guy. Just the restaurant itself. Hungry, watching, waiting for the next person too tired, too desperate, too distracted to notice the shadows behind the dumpster.